Julia Samuel quietly wrote something in her notepad when Diana looked curiously. "What's that?" she asked. Julia smiled gently and said, "Gaslighting behavior patterns. I'm documenting exactly how Charles manipulates your reality." Diana was shocked. Her professional therapist friend was analyzing her marriage from a clinical perspective. "You mean this has a name? This is an actual psychological condition?" Julia nodded seriously. "Diana, what you're experiencing isn't personal failure. It's textbook psychological abuse, and I know exactly how to help you recognize and resist it." In that session, Julia began using revolutionary therapy techniques, specially designed methods for royal trauma that would transform Diana's entire psychological landscape. This was the incredible story of professional healing meeting royal dysfunction. This was the beginning of scientific warfare using modern therapy's most sophisticated techniques against centuries-old manipulation systems. Julia Samuel, trained as a child bereavement specialist, had met Diana in the early years of the 1980s. It was initially friendship through mutual connections, but Julia quickly noticed troubling patterns in Diana's marriage. As a professional therapist, Julia was an expert at recognizing signs of psychological distress. Diana's language patterns, self-blame tendencies, anxiety symptoms, all were classic indicators of systematic psychological abuse. "Diana constantly apologizes," Julia noted privately, "for preferences, opinions, natural reactions. This suggests conditioning to believe her authentic self is unacceptable." Julia carefully observed Diana's interactions with Charles, and the communication dynamics were deeply unhealthy. Charles's systematic undermining, cultural superiority assertions, approval withdrawal tactics, textbook emotional manipulation. But the royal context complicated traditional therapeutic intervention. Diana wasn't a typical client seeking help voluntarily. She was a friend unaware she needed professional assistance. Julia made a strategic decision: provide therapeutic support disguised as friendship guidance. Use professional skills discreetly to help Diana recognize and resist psychological manipulation. The first technique Julia employed was reality testing through external perspective. "Diana, describe a perfect day for you," Julia requested during a casual lunch. Diana struggled to answer. "I don't know. What Charles would approve of. I suppose?" Julia's therapeutic insight was immediate. "Diana, the question wasn't about Charles's preferences. What would you enjoy?" Diana was confused. "But I should consider his preferences," Julia gently challenged. "In healthy relationships, both people have individual preferences. Yours matter equally." This simple exercise revealed Diana's loss of autonomous identity. Every preference was filtered through Charles's approval, a classic result of systematic psychological conditioning. Julia introduced the second technique: pattern recognition documentation. "Diana, let's track your mood patterns," Julia suggested. "Notice when you feel confident versus anxious. So look for triggers." Diana was initially reluctant. "That seems obsessive." Julia provided professional explanation. Patterns reveal important information about what environments support versus undermine your well-being. Julia secretly hoped Diana would notice the correlation between Charles's behavior and her emotional state. Self-discovery was more powerful than external diagnosis. Within weeks, Diana was surprised. "Julia, I feel wonderful when Charles travels, but anxious when he returns. Why?" Julia used the Socratic method. "What do you think might explain that pattern?" Diana was considering. "Maybe I relax when I'm not being judged constantly." Julia validated the insight. That's a very perceptive observation, Diana. The third technique was cognitive reframing through professional language. Julia began introducing clinical terminology casually, helping Diana understand her experience through a psychological framework rather than a personal failure narrative. What you describe sounds like intermittent reinforcement, Julia mentioned during a conversation about Charles's unpredictable approval. Diana was curious. What's that? Julia was educational. A psychological principle. When approval comes unpredictably, it creates stronger attachment than consistent approval, like gambling addiction. Diana was shocked. You mean Charles's behavior creates addiction to his approval? Julia was careful. Similar psychological mechanism, yes. Diana was beginning to see the marriage dynamics through a scientific lens rather than a personal inadequacy interpretation. But what was truly shocking was that Julia developed completely innovative therapy methods for Diana and adapted traditional approaches to the royal context. Julia realized Diana needed a specialized therapeutic approach. Traditional therapy models were inadequate for high-profile psychological abuse involving cultural superiority, institutional pressure, and public scrutiny. Julia developed what she privately called stealth therapy, professional intervention disguised as friendship support. The key innovation was bibliotherapy through strategic reading recommendations. Diana, I thought you might enjoy this book, Julia said casually, providing a carefully selected psychology text about emotional manipulation. The book was chosen specifically for Diana's situation. Accessible language, relatable examples, a clear explanation of gaslighting techniques. Diana read eagerly. Julia, this book describes exactly what happens with Charles. How did you know? Julia was innocent. It seemed like something you'd find interesting. Diana continued reading, highlighting passages, making notes. Self-education was more powerful than therapist interpretation. The second innovation was social comparison therapy through friendship networks. Julia systematically connected Diana with women in healthy relationships, not obvious therapy, just strategically expanding her social circle. Diana, would you like to meet my friend Sarah? Her husband, Mark, is a wonderful support system for her interests. Diana observed healthy relationship dynamics. Julia, Mark actually encourages Sarah's independence, and Charles discourages mine. Julia used Socratic questioning. What do you think accounts for that difference? Diana was analyzing. Maybe Mark actually loves Sarah as she is? Julia was validating. That's how healthy partnerships typically function. The third innovation was trauma-informed royal protocol analysis. Julia helped Diana examine royal obligations through a psychological health lens rather than a duty compliance framework. Diana, which royal duties energize you versus drain you? Julia inquired. Diana was thoughtful. I love working with children, AIDS patients, homeless people, but I hate the formal cultural events Charles insists on. Julia provided therapeutic insight. Your authentic self emerges through meaningful work. See, it gets suppressed through obligation work. Diana had recognition. Charles only values obligation work. He says meaningful work is inappropriate for my position. Julia offered a reality check. Healthy partners celebrate what brings you alive, not suppress it. The fourth innovation was covert boundary setting training. Julia taught boundary techniques through friendship advice rather than formal therapy. Diana, you mentioned feeling overwhelmed by Charles's cultural education demands. Have you considered requesting some control over your schedule? Diana was frightened. He won't accept boundaries. Julia was strategic. Perhaps start small. One area where you maintain decision-making authority. Test the response. Julia was providing tactical guidance disguised as friendship support. Diana felt empowered by choice rather than therapy compliance. This was exactly when everything changed. Because Julia's covert therapy methods created a profound breakthrough in Diana, and psychological transformation began to become visible. Diana's first major breakthrough came through Julia's strategic validation therapy. Julia, I told Charles I wanted one evening per week with friends. He became furious, said I was being selfish. Julia's therapeutic response. Diana, requesting friendship time is a normal, healthy need. His anger suggests he views your independence as a threat. Diana was confused. But maybe I am being selfish. Julia provided professional perspective. Diana, in psychology, we distinguish between healthy self-care and selfish behavior. Maintaining friendships is self-care, essential for mental health. Diana had never heard her needs described as mental health requirements before. The professional framework completely reframed her self-perception. Julia continued validation. Your desire for friendship, independence, authentic expression, these aren't character flaws. They're signs of psychological health. Diana was tearful. You mean I'm not difficult? I'm not impossible? Julia provided firm professional validation. Diana, you're remarkably psychologically healthy considering the systematic undermining you experience. Your instincts are correct. This professional validation was more powerful than friendship reassurance. Julia's credentials gave authority to Diana's reality. The second breakthrough was systematic documentation training. Julia taught Diana clinical observation techniques disguised as journaling advice. Diana, you mentioned feeling confused about interactions with Charles. Try recording factual observations versus emotional interpretations. Julia provided framework. Right. Charles said X, I felt Y. Separate facts from feelings. Patterns become clearer. Diana discovered systematic gaslighting through her own documentation. Julia, reading my journal, I see Charles consistently denies saying things I clearly remember. Is my memory failing? Julia's professional assessment. Diana, your memory is excellent. What you describe is classic gaslighting, systematic reality distortion to create dependency. Diana was shocked. This is an actual psychological technique with a name? Julia was educational. Well-documented manipulation method. You're not imagining things or remembering incorrectly. The third breakthrough was professional referral network activation. Julia discreetly connected Diana with other therapeutic professionals without a formal therapy referral. Diana, my colleague Dr. Robertson specializes in high-stress relationship dynamics. Would you like an informal consultation? Julia was coordinating a professional support network without the stigmatizing therapy label. Diana was receiving clinical guidance through friendship connections. Dr. Robertson confirmed Julia's assessment. Diana, what you describe constitutes psychological abuse, systematic, sophisticated, deliberate. Professional consensus gave Diana confidence in her perceptions. Multiple experts were validating her reality. The fourth breakthrough was therapeutic homework disguised as friendship activities. Julia assigned confidence-building exercises through social activities. Diana, let's try a new restaurant you choose. Don't ask anyone's opinion. Trust your preferences. Simple exercise. Profound psychological impact. Diana was rediscovering autonomous decision-making abilities. Julia, I chose Thai food and loved it. I haven't made an independent choice in years. Julia celebrated. You have excellent taste and judgment, Diana. trust yourself. Each small success was rebuilding Diana's confidence in her own capabilities. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because Julia's therapy techniques didn't just help Diana, but also pioneered an entirely new field of high-profile trauma therapy. Julia realized traditional therapy models were inadequate for clients facing institutional pressure, public scrutiny, and cultural superiority manipulation. Julia began documenting her innovative techniques privately, developing what would become a specialized field: celebrity/high-profile trauma therapy. The key innovations Julia pioneered: stealth intervention protocols, professional therapeutic support delivered through friendship networks rather than clinical settings. Cultural superiority, abuse recognition, identifying manipulation through educational/cultural intimidation, a previously unrecognized abuse category. Royal protocol, trauma analysis, understanding how institutional obligations can be weaponized for psychological control. Media-aware therapeutic planning, considering public scrutiny impact on the healing process and intervention strategies. Support network professional integration, coordinating therapeutic support through friendship circles rather than isolated clinical relationships. Julia's methods were revolutionary because traditional therapy required voluntary participation, controlled environment, and confidential therapeutic relationship. Diana needed intervention within existing social structures, professional support disguised as friendship, to healing without formal therapeutic identification. What Diana taught me, Julia later reflected, is that sophisticated psychological abuse often occurs in environments that appear privileged, cultured, appropriate. Traditional therapeutic models are insufficient for these contexts. Julia's Diana work inspired new therapeutic approaches for high-profile domestic violence, institutional abuse, and cultural superiority manipulation. Academic papers began appearing: stealth therapeutic intervention, cultural manipulation recognition, institutional abuse in high-status relationships. Julia was quietly becoming a pioneer in a field she accidentally discovered through Diana's friendship. Professional conferences began inviting Julia to speak about innovative therapeutic approaches for non-traditional client situations. But Julia always maintained confidentiality about specific client details. Professional ethics were paramount, even when developing groundbreaking methods. Diana's healing journey was providing a template for therapeutic innovation without compromising privacy. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. Because Julia's therapy methods went beyond clinical innovation to change Diana's entire life trajectory. Through Julia's therapeutic guidance, Diana developed psychological skills that enabled her later independence, reality testing abilities, boundary-setting confidence, manipulation recognition, professional support utilization. When Diana eventually sought formal therapy, Julia's foundational work made traditional therapeutic intervention more effective. Julia prepared me for therapy, Diana later acknowledged. Without her initial support, I wouldn't have recognized the need for professional help or trusted the therapeutic process. Julia's stealth intervention created therapeutic readiness. Diana understood psychological concepts, trusted professional expertise, and maintained a friendship support network throughout the formal healing process. Most importantly, Julia helped Diana recognize psychological abuse as systematic rather than personal failure. This understanding was essential for successful therapeutic intervention. Before Julia, Diana reflected, I thought something was wrong with me. After Julia, I understood something was wrong with the treatment I received. This perspective shift was crucial for healing. Clients cannot address systematic abuse until they recognize it as abuse rather than personal inadequacy. Julia's methods also inspired Diana's later advocacy work. Understanding psychological manipulation helped Diana recognize similar patterns in others. Diana's charity work became informed by therapeutic understanding. She could identify people experiencing psychological trauma, provide appropriate referrals, offer informed support. Diana became a therapeutic presence for others, Julia observed. Her healing journey equipped her to help others recognize and address psychological manipulation. Diana's public platform, combined with therapeutic awareness, created powerful advocacy for psychological health education. Mental health charities began receiving Diana's support. She understood from personal experience how psychological healing works, what support systems are essential, how professional intervention can transform lives. Julia's therapeutic innovation indirectly influenced the entire mental health awareness movement through Diana's advocacy work. Now you've seen nothing. Because the therapy techniques Julia developed for Diana started a revolution in the modern mental health field and began helping thousands of people in similar situations. Julia's innovations became standard practice in the therapeutic community. Stealth intervention for resistant clients, support network integration, cultural manipulation recognition, institutional abuse identification. Professional training programs began incorporating Julia's methods. Therapists learned to recognize high-profile psychological abuse, provide support within existing social structures, coordinate intervention through friendship networks. The Julia Samuel method quietly became a recognized approach in the therapeutic community, though Julia herself remained modest about attribution. Mental health organizations began developing programs based on Julia's Diana work, support networks for high-profile domestic violence, therapeutic intervention without formal therapy identification, professional support through friendship facilitation. Academic research confirmed Julia's innovations. Clients experiencing cultural superiority abuse responded better to stealth intervention than traditional therapy models. Diana's case study, anonymized, became a teaching tool for therapeutic training programs worldwide. This approach, professors explained to students, demonstrates how professional therapeutic support can be provided within existing social structures for clients unable or unwilling to engage formal therapeutic services. Julia's methods were particularly valuable for clients facing institutional pressure. Corporate executives, political figures, religious leaders, cultural personalities experiencing systematic psychological manipulation. Traditional therapy was often unavailable to high-profile individuals due to confidentiality concerns, professional image requirements, and institutional pressure against seeking help. Julia's stealth intervention model provided an alternative: professional therapeutic support delivered through friendship networks, cultural activities, and social connections. Thousands of people benefited from therapeutic approaches Julia pioneered through Diana's healing journey. The modern mental health field recognized Julia's contribution: innovative therapeutic delivery, creative intervention strategies, professional excellence within complex social environments. Diana's healing became a catalyst for therapeutic innovation, benefiting the global mental health community. You won't believe it, but Julia's professional secrets didn't just save Diana, but also made revolutionary contributions to the modern therapy field and shaped the future of mental health treatment. Julia's legacy through Diana work: therapeutic innovation, professional ethics, creative intervention, supportive healing, collaborative treatment, friendship-based recovery. Key principles from Julia's approach: meet clients where they are, provide support within existing structures, maintain professional boundaries, coordinate comprehensive care, respect individual autonomy, prioritize healing over formal compliance. Modern therapists worldwide use Julia's methods. stealth intervention techniques, support network coordination, cultural manipulation recognition, institutional abuse identification, high-profile trauma treatment. Diana's healing journey became a template for therapeutic innovation. How professional expertise can be delivered creatively, how friendship networks can support healing, how individual recovery can inspire systematic change. Julia proved professional therapeutic support doesn't require traditional clinical settings. Healing happens through human connection, professional guidance, supportive relationships, and creative intervention. Diana's transformation through Julia's therapeutic friendship demonstrated the power of professional compassion, innovative thinking, ethical practice, and healing dedication. A journey from friendship to professional innovation. An evolution from stealth therapy to field advancement. A transformation from individual healing to global impact. A foundation for modern therapy methods. The legacy of Julia's therapeutic genius. The power of Diana's healing inspiration. The victory of professional compassion. The triumph of mental health innovation. This is the revolutionary end of a perfect modern therapy lesson. And so, the story of Julia's professional secrets comes to an end. A journey from individual therapy to field innovation. An evolution from personal healing to global impact. A transformation from friendship support to professional advancement. An inspiration for modern mental health development. The legacy of Julia's therapeutic wisdom. The power of Diana's healing contribution. The proof of professional excellence and compassion. The strength of therapeutic innovation through friendship.